Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, December the 14th, 2021. I am Solid Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. Welcome, Frankie. You are number one. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Okay, so we are going to get started. Let's see here. Okay, so we're going to talk about how should we handle emotions. And how should a person handle their emotions when something gets personal? Should we just push them to the side and hold them in or let them out for all to see? Should other people tell you how to think and feel? Should you criticize people for not thinking the way you do or just accept it and move on? So I know I have a lot of questions there. And, you know, when you talk about a person's emotions, and especially when it gets, things tend to get personal, or people tend to creep up and, kind of invade that personal space that is dealing, with your emotions, that personal space that, that is your emotion. We all have them. We all get emotional over one thing or another, be it, a conversation you may be having, a death of a family member, a new job, birth of a, baby, whatever. We all get emotional. But some people, they get personal, and some people want to, tell you how you should feel. I know people who have made comments, about the way people grieve. You shouldn't do that. Why do people do this? It's not a big deal, or this or that. But then when it happens to them, they get a little PO'd, pissed off. They want you to feel the way they do. They want you to accept things, accept what they say. I'll put it like that. So the last part of this is, should you criticize people for not thinking the way you do, or just accept it and move on? Can we just not criticize someone, and if I don't think the way you do, or if I don't believe in, something that you say, why should I criticize you, or, keep hi 100 yard alchemist. I am so happy to see you here today, my friend. Thank you for coming. So that's what I would like to know. Why do we get personal? Why do we invade each other's, emotional space? If we don't agree with something, should we get upset? If I make a comment about something and someone, doesn't like what I say, should I get upset, or should I just say, you know what, whatever, screw it, and just move on? And over the years, when I was younger, especially in high school, and when I was in college, and in my 20s, even into my 30s, I would get upset. But then my father would always tell me, why do you care what other people say? And if people don't agree with you, or if you disagree with someone else, and, and they, don't like it, whatever, move on. And that's what I have been doing probably for the last 30 years. I mean, I truly do not care for the most part what people, think, or what people say. Um, if they criticize me, okay, but when they start to invade my emotional space, when they want to tell me, how I should think, or, even tell me how I should grieve, um, then I got to push back some. But for the most part, I just, agree with me. You don't think the way I do, or I'm not accepting the way, you think, or you want me to think. Not a big deal to me. Move on because life really is too short. No matter how long you are on this earth, it's always going to be too short. So with that said, I will, open it up. Does anybody want to join? Frankie, I know you're at work. I'm still going to send you an invite. Alchemist, I'm not sure if you're at work, if you want to talk, that's fine. If not, I will move on. Um, and there is something that I found, and this was probably about a year ago. Um, when you're dealing with your emotions, there is something called emotional dysregulation. And it's an emotional response that is poorly regulated and does not fall within the exception. I'm sorry, does not fall within the traditionally accepted range of emotional reaction. So basically, people can have mood swings or whatever, but some people may think that, wow, his reaction was like way too much, like, what's up with him, or what's up with her. I mean, you just told her, she had a flat tire, and she just totally, started screaming, and so snapping, yes, snapping, so you know how far do we allow people, I guess, to get under our skin before we lose it? Or do you just allow them to continue to get under your skin, and then you never say anything? And then one day you just totally lose it. So when people get personal, and I'm not talking about, your dresses is ugly, the way you know, the color you painted your house, that's an ugly color, or, something you said, at work or something, people thought that it was stupid, or because people do that. People will come out and say that, things are stupid, ugly, whatever. People do use those terms, especially when you're young. So do you just shrug it off? And is it easier for some people to shrug those type of things off, or is it harder for some, easier for some, harder for some? um do older people deal with their emotions better than young people? And if so, why? Some people say that uh when you're older, you know more. uh Frankie says experience. Just because I'm older, does that mean that I have experience in dealing with my emotions, as opposed to someone who's 20, or someone who's 16? Welcome, crazy lady. So how do and how should we deal with our emotions um when things get personal, or when things get to be too much? um I'm one of those people where I don't, as I've gotten older, I don't like people, and this may sound really, really bad. I know it's going to sound really bad. I don't like people bringing their children into my home. And I'm talking about young children, because time and time again, when people have brought their young children into my home, they don't, their kids are running around the house, and, they may run around your house and you may not say anything, but when you're in someone else's house, control your kids. And then when I step in and say something, then, all of a sudden it's like, don't talk to my child like that, but you're in my home. So in terms of my emotions on that level, I literally have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, take a breath, and then I have to say something. If it continues, I explode. So welcome that guy. So again, I'm going to open it up. Crazy lady, would you like to say anything in terms of how you deal with your emotions when things get personal, or do older people deal with their emotions better than young people? Is it experience the reason why, or what do you think, if you'd like to answer? Or should
Well, that's a tricky question. You would think that the older person would, have mastered, temper control and impulses, uh, but that's not always the case, as we all know. Um, I personally, I try to, stop, take that deep breath, before I explode, Um, yeah, it's, emotions are emotions, and everyone has the right to their emotions. I'm not one saying, that, but I mean, just the way, you respond to them. There's always a wrong place and a right place to,
But
when
what
you
is
go home.
considered okay? But if someone is like just pushing you, pushing you, pushing you, pushing you, pushing you, and then they get
I
personal,
give them a
and
fair
you
warning.
okay, and they keep doing it. At what point, even if you're ready to explode, what is considered that right time? Meaning, will it ever be a right time when you've given them that warning and they continue to push you? So when is a right time?
If they continue, okay, if I'm being pushed and I say, I'll tell them straight up, hey, you know what? We need to both shut up right now because I'm gonna lose my temper and then I'm not responsible for, let's not go there. And I'll like I've turned and walked away, and but if they continue on after that, the way I look at it is like, well, you're an idiot and sorry about your luck. I just, but yeah, I mean, I physically like turned around and like walked away from a situation just so I don't, go there if it's like unreasonable. I've gone there and it's been like, you know what, like kids in the house, I totally get that. I mean, anytime I took my kids, I would either brought them something entertaining, but they didn't mess with other people's stuff, and I don't like it when people come and bring their kids to my house and like mess up my stuff, so why would I do that to another person? It's just common courtesy, I would think, you know,
But you say common courtesy, but when it comes to
but it's
other
not very
people's
common.
children's, I mean, it isn't. It isn't. I mean, other people's children, um, sometimes it can be an issue because again, I've gone over a friend's house, and their kids are running around just screaming and hollering. I'm looking at them like, do they not hear this? Do they not see it? But I guess they're just so used to it, and I'm thinking, when I was little, there's no way in hell my sister and I would have been able to run around and scream like that, and my son definitely would not have been able to do it. But then when you come over to someone else's house and you have your children with you and they're doing it, and you're not reining them in, and then you say something, and then that parent wants to say to you, don't talk to my child like that,
I'd
you
be like, well,
know
then control your children or go home.
exactly. So I have a policy now that when I know people who are are parents and they want to bring their kids or their grandchildren, I'm like, no children, don't bring your children. And I literally come out now and I say that, and I especially say it to people who I know I've had issues with in the past, and they get upset with me, but they have a choice. You either come over without the child or children, or you stay home. Either way, my day is still going to continue. So,
Yeah, I
and
always have to
keeping
carry,
man, Now,
When
I
you
just
tell a
want to read.
child to stop, and that child stops whatever it's doing and looks at you, check it out. They know the concept of no.
So, do you think that? Well, let me read what GP Man says. He says having children should require some kind of license. For some people, GP Man, I completely 100% agree. I totally 100% agree. But what happens when? Do you think that is getting too personal when you tell that parent um, uh, that your child needs to basically sit their little behind down and you know do you think it's getting too personal that you've crossed a line in your own home or on your own turf?
No, that's my sanctuary.
All right, now let's say you're over their house and let's say you have your purse sitting there or you have something of yours, your coat, jacket, whatever, and it's, sitting out, whatever, and the kid starts, playing with it, going to your purse, and you say, no, no, don't, don't do that. And then they keep doing it. And then finally you're like, no, stop, whatever. And then a parent gets upset and you're on their turf. Do you think that you've crossed that line?
No, because it's still infringing on your personal being. You know what I mean? I mean, and you know, that's your purse. That's like I don't know. Uh, it's like your underwear in a way.
I
You
mean, no, I
really
mean,
think the way
it
that
is
stuff.
it is your personal profit, your personal property. Now that guy says at three plus kids by three different guys, one should question if they are a good mother. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that's kind of stereotyping there. And GP Man says the U.S. has the highest rate of single mothers in the world, and
That
uh,
just means she had
Al
just
Alchemist says that guy
multi-tasting men.
completely disagree. So that guy, why do you say that? I mean, when and this is where, you know, you can have children by different men, but that doesn't mean that you're not a good parent because you have parents that have three plus kids, and it's only them or a mother and a father, and they're shitty parents. So it's a string of broken homes. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad parent. Just because you come from a broken home doesn't mean that you come from a bad parent. You have people who come from broken homes and they've become doctors and lawyers. And GP Man says 85% of incarcerated men and women in the U.S. were raised by single mothers. So I don't know. I mean, crazy lady, what do you think about some of these comments? And that guy, I'm going to invite you to speak if you'd like to come on. If not, I totally understand.
Um, that just means the mom, had a crappy choice in men. Maybe she, you know, wasn't a right fit because I had two kids and they're from different fathers and uh both my kids were, they were awesome. My daughter's awesome. She's doing better than I am. You know, uh, so I don't think that you know that would be a factor. I'm from a broken home, but I was raised by my father. Um, it's yet it, and I've seen parents, with both parents in the family where the kids are like, yeah, they need, neither parent was a good parent.
Okay. All right. Now that guy says I would expect someone who does that to disagree. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's relating towards me or anything, but I have one son. He's 21. I'm married. I've been married since 1994. My son was. I'm sorry, I was not married since 1994. I've been married since 1997. My son was born in 2000. He is in university right now, about to graduate, and then he is going for his MBA. So I was not raised by a single parent. I was raised in a two-parent household until my father died in 2018. My parents had been married for 60 years. My mother recently passed this past October, lived in the same house for 63 years. And everyone that I grew up around uh, grew up, with two parents. You know, so I so that does not pertain to me. But I do think that saying that, people who have women who have children by different parents, I think that is a bit of of a stereotype, and it's also putting, the pressure on the woman, as it does take two to tango. So, these single, moms and what have you, where are the fathers? When you have these broken homes, where are the fathers, in these homes? And this goes across all demographics. So, uh, that's, in terms of um, I just wanted to let you know in terms of my own background and how I was raised. Both of my sister went, to university, graduated. Uh, my mom had her master's. My sister got her master's. Whatever. So um, that does not pertain to me, but I do disagree with that comment. And then see, Alchemist says the number of kids by however many parents does not affect how well the mother or father parents a child. And this is true. I mean, you know, um, you have people out there who struggle to make sure that their children, no matter how many children are in that household, no matter how many different fathers, or in some cases mothers, that a kid has, um, that their kids are raised right. Everyone doesn't have to go to college. Everyone doesn't have to be a doctor or a nurse or an attorney, whatever. But if you're just raising your child, and you raise them up and they're a good person, and they're holding down a job, and they're able to take care of themselves, they're not causing anyone harm, then I think that parent did a damn good job. um, More kids than you can possibly watch forces your older kids to be parents. Yeah, it does. I mean, that is true, and we did a show on that, where we were talking about that. People who have a lot of kids, it does force the older children to parent the younger ones. But then again, look back 100, 200 years ago, when when people were out in the old west and all this other stuff. It's like you had all these kids because they were supposed to work the farm and whatever. But yeah, I mean, you are right. There are, in a lot of households, when you have the older kids and your oldest is 19 and your youngest is 2, then yeah, mom and dad are going to say, watch your brother and sisters, make sure you give them dinner, make sure you do this. I mean, absolutely. So let's see. Crazy lady says I had mine 10 years apart. Alchemist says that guy, you're basing your opinion on the nuclear family model, which is good, but times change, and the idea of what a healthy family is has also changed. And then that guy says, I knew a child that was one of 9 kids. She was pissed she had to basically be a mom when she was 16. And again, I agree, that does happen. You know, that does happen. But what are the circumstances? Are you, and I'm not saying for her personally, but you have some people where you can have a sick parent, and then the other parent's out working, so you do have to rely on the other siblings, and usually the oldest ones to help out with the youngest ones. Does it suck? Yes. Would I want to do it? No. But what are the circumstances? And I do know that there are some parents who are probably out there, having a party and what have you, and not paying attention, and they are irresponsible. But then again, you do have the ones that are responsible, and then for whatever reason, the older ones have to take care of the younger ones. So I don't know. So you know I just, we just say be careful, because you never know how people are living. You never know what goes on behind closed doors. And, sometimes when we assume things, and I've even done it, when you assume things and it turns out to be that it was a complete opposite. So, that's the only thing that I can say on that. So, I'm sorry, crazy lady. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just reading some of the comments and commenting on them. Did you want to say anything else?
No, you hit it right on the nail, because, you know, like I said, I had mine 10 years apart. And yeah, there were times when I was like, Alex, please, dude, you got to help me with this kid. But it that's what family is for. I mean, I don't know. My brother used to watch me, oh, yeah, you can go, but you have to take your sister with you. I mean, I'm sure he didn't like that, but I mean, I don't know. Part of being a big brother, I guess.
Okay. All right. Now that guy says I had a professor in college say the 70s were awesome, free love, millions standing up to an unjust government. And then GB Man says there's always a general rule and the exception that doesn't disprove the general rule. Yeah, but still, I still say that we can't stereotype. I mean, again, in my family, there were only two of us. My sister is 2.5 years older than me, but my mother never made my sister take me with her. It was, if my sister was going out or she wanted to go somewhere, and it was planned or whatever, or somebody rang the doorbell and said, can so and so come out, whatever. My mother never made my sister take me with her, because my mother was very much into, you have your friends, your sister has her friends, and unless you all agree to play together, then you know no one's hanging out with the other. And my father reinforced that rule. But the general rule and the exception, you know, um, let's see, I would never use a micro argument versus a macro argument. See, and then I'm sorry, that guy says a week later, a different professor talked about how the 70s were awful, blasted apart the nuclear family, left a string of one on it children. Well, when you talk about unwanted children, things happen in history that, and I don't want to use the term unwanted children because it just sounds bad. But you look at people who went to Vietnam in the military, and they had relations with some of the Vietnamese women, and you had a lot of Amerasian children that were born during that time. um are they unwanted? Is it their fault? I mean, every generation, I mean, there's just so many situations where you have children that were not planned. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the mothers who usually have the responsibility to raise these children will not raise them well. I mean, I don't know. And Crazy Lady says my dad had 5 wives. So GP man, when you say micro argument versus macro argument, what do you mean? And I know you're not able to talk because I know you're at work. So, what do you mean? And welcome, Juju. I'm just waiting for see if he'll respond. And crazy lady, did it bother you that your we'll put it like this, out of those five wives, did you have other siblings?
Um, I have a younger half sibling. Um, and one wife, she brought kids with her, and I mean it was okay. They Her kids didn't like my dad's rules, so they ended up going and living with their dad. But and then my dad's relationship with her fell apart, and then she left, and she never got hold, But I don't know, it didn't bother me, I know that my dad was the toxic one in all the relationships, though. Just hindsight 2020. It's like, yeah, I know why you didn't stay married, Dad.
So did things ever get personal? I mean, it's like, did you ever, again going back to the, topic of the show, did things ever get personal between you and your dad, and did it ever get emotional, because he had married so many times? Did it ever, get to the point where he was overstepping his bounds with you, or you were overstepping uh, uh, your bounds with him?
Um, yes and no. Um, my dad, I say yes and no because his last wife, his widow, the way she did things, it just like, when I brought up the subject to my dad, I was like, hey, she made this comment, and I was like, whatever. Um, he said, well, he goes, the rule, Stephanie. Uh, the household's her, domain, and if she wants you to do that, just do it. I was like, okay, because
Now,
it's
how
his
how
house.
how old were you when he said that?
I was an adult.
Okay.
She made a comment that I needed to knock on the door before I walked in their house, and I was like, "This is my dad's house. Are you kidding me? I know all this. Even if I didn't have a key, which I do, I know the secret squirrel ways to get in without, busting out a window or anything. It's my dad's house. But yeah,
But okay, but if he's if you're if you're an adult and you no longer live in the household and he's married to her, wouldn't it be their house as opposed to his house?
yeah, I would think that, but no, my dad. That's just the way he ran. The household was
No, I
whomever.
mean, no, I'm saying that to you when you say this is my dad's house. But if he was married to her, wouldn't it be their house?
Yes and no, because but that house was my dad's. I mean, like, 'cause he had it before he married her, and she had her own house, you know, and it's wherever my dad lives, it's his house, and I'm his child, and I don't expect my kids to knock on my door ever. I don't think they ever would.
You're
But you
talking about
understand, it's
as
just
opposed to just walking in.
yeah, yeah, no, like me not being his daughter. I wouldn't just walk in, but I'm his daughter, and it. He's my dad. It's like my dad never knocked on my door ever, even when I had my own household. He walks in,
So okay, so and I'm playing both sides of the fence here. So would you say that you were criticizing your stepmother or your dad's wife for getting upset?
um, I just thought it was odd, because that just the way she said it in context, it was like, yeah, I don't know. It was a statement that I've never heard before, ever.
Okay.
And for
Okay.
me, it kind of like, made my head trip a little bit.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Crucible Man, G Money, and Isabel Priska Noxolo. Noxolo. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I want to go back to, let's see, that guy said a couple of things. Let's see, there's exceptions to most rules, just a matter of rarity. I had a sociology professor say is the only true science. Modern psychology completely failed to address society's problems. Human stereotypes. It is a human thing to to do to assess threats. It requires critical thinking, not to stereotype. I found it interesting that when you said to assess threats, um, and I'm connecting this with what you said before about having children, unless you're talking about something completely different. Because if a woman has a child by three different um, uh, men, is is that a threat? So I'm a little bit confused there. And then you say it requires critical thinking, not just a stereotype. Again, mm, I mean, people stereotype all the time, and yes, it is human nature, but I don't think it requires critical thinking. I think that a lot of times it just requires common sense. Don't assume that a group of people are doing this, or don't assume that just because this person is this, that they're that, because you don't know people. I mean, we don't know the person that's walking down the street. So, don't assume that just because he's a certain color that he's going to rob you, or just because they're a certain color, that they're not going to, or this child comes from a home of six, and they have a single parent, doesn't mean that they are going to be a problem child when they go to school, and they're not going to be able to sit still. That child could get straight A's. So I don't know. Welcome, Shannon. um and then Crazy Lady says, whatever happened to certain rules and protocols were always in place. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can't. Whomever my dad was like dating or married to at any time, there were certain rules and protocols that were always in place at his house. They were like non-negotiable, you know, that just the way things are in a story. You know, it didn't matter, who he's married to, or whomever he may be dating at the time or whatever. It was just, those are the way things ran, regardless.
Okay. All right.
And we've had to
but
try to change them, and it didn't work.
but still, do you think, again, going back to personal space and what have you, do you think that you were invading your father and his new wife's space, even though you were his daughter?
No, because one of my dad's rules is you always call before you come over. That includes his children that weren't living at home.
And that was for a crazy lady.
And so, it
Okay, I
I
think
was
we
expected.
we lost her, but that's fine. Okay, so let's see.
Can you hear me
I'm
now?
just going to go. I want to make sure I didn't. Okay, so GP Man says, I'm just going to finish reading some of these comics here. Stereotypes are very real. Yes, they are. They are very real. Okay, Shannon, you're eating, not a problem. So I mean, welcome, feisty one, crazy lady. Did you want to jump in again, or Okay, I think we lost her. All right. So, hold on, I just want to make sure I have all these comments. Okay, so let me go back to stereotypes for a moment. Okay. Do you think that stereotypes criticize people? Do you think stereotypes criticize people for, like, one of my questions I have for not thinking the way you do? Um do you think stereotypes are fair? Those are some questions, that I have. I'm just reading, and again, I'm just looking at the comments, again from G and that guy. So, Crucible Man, welcome. What would you like to say?
I'm a little late today, so I'm trying to pick up the thread here. But just as far as stereotypes, I think we're all guilty of them. I think that's part of human nature. What I think stereotypes are is the sum of our collective experiences over a period of time with a certain group or type of individuals, where the behavior is repeated and reinforced to where we expect certain things from a certain group, good and bad. I don't think it's avoidable, but I think where stereotypes become very insidious is when they're used to discriminate against people and to make unfair judgments. I should say always, we're frequently wrong in our stereotyping of people. We're simply basing it on a collection of information that has been compiled over the course of a period of time. It's when we use that information to promote biases or discrimination or bigotry is when we get in trouble. And I don't know if that's avoidable, because we are all very judgmental people as a human race. We shouldn't be, since we're all sinners, but we're very quick to judge, based on maybe not a very complete set of information, but it's based on our experiences and the experiences of other people that reinforce our beliefs.
Okay. I think what you said was true, and I agree with it. But let me just read a little bit about what the show is, and then I'm going to tie in some comments that were made earlier. How should a person handle their emotions when something gets personal? Should we just push them to the side and hold them in, or let them out for all to see? Should other people tell you how to think and feel? Should you criticize people for not thinking the way you do, or just accept it and move on? Now, I made a comment at the beginning about how I don't allow children in my house anymore, mainly because people who have children, they tend not to, from my experience, from this is not a stereotype, whatever, this is from my own experience that I've had, where people just let their kids run wild, and it drives me crazy. And, I have to pretty much tell them to leave. All right. And then GP Man says having children should require some kind of license. And then that guy said at 3+ kids by 3 different guys, one should question if they are a good mother. And then the U.S. Has the highest rate, not this is what GP Man says, the U.S. has the highest rate of single mothers in the world. Alchemist disagreed. And then it just, again, if you just read through the comments, and that's how we kind of got on stereotypes. So my question is tying in stereotypes with criticizing people. Are we, the last part of my question, should you criticize people for not thinking the way you do, or just accept it and move on? Stereotyping someone, or, are we criticizing someone when we say that you have 3+ kids by 3 different, men? Does that mean, are you criticizing them? Did that turn into a stereotype? And I said that, just because, you have, children by different men, doesn't mean that you're a bad parent, you know. But you can say, well, statistics say, yeah, but at the same time, I don't care about that, because the bottom line is you still have those parents who still do a damn good job, and you have, parents who are together who do a horrible job. So, are we criticizing people? Are we getting too personal? Because again, like we were talking about yesterday, you never know what's going on inside somebody else's home. So that's where that's where we are. So hopefully I was able to catch you up. And if anybody disagrees with anything that I said, please let me know. Crucible Man, do you want to make a comment?
I think everybody is critical of behavior. I mean, we kind of assess things based on behavior and outcomes. And over time, we see that certain behavior results in certain outcomes. Some of them are positive and some of them are negative. And so, you mentioned statistics, that woman who may have had 3 children from 3 different men, she may be a very good mother. I would never make that judgment, because there's not necessarily a causal relationship between having 3 children by 3 different men and being a good mother. Now, you could question decision making and stability and things like that, but I think statistics would say that over time, families that are built that way are susceptible to problems. Kids will possibly have problems with that kind of a family unit. So I think we criticize things that history tells us are going to turn out poorly for this person. As for not thinking like us, I mean, we all have our separate value systems. We all have our separate systems of belief. And frequently people will agree with us and frequently they won't. But as somebody who's been on this planet for a while and has tried many times to change hearts and minds, it's just not, I'm not going to say it's not possible, but people become very invested in their beliefs, and they are very disinclined to be persuaded to another point of view. So my advice would be to accept it and move on. You are really dealing with, you may be approaching things with a high degree of logic and reason, and the other person may be approaching it with a high degree of emotion, and you're simply not going to have a meeting of the minds under that kind of environment.
So when people see Crazy Lady says, okay, I'm back. Technology is revolting against me today. Not a problem. So, but when you have people, who I mean, because I think that's personal. I think it's personal, when you stereotype, when you make the assumption that, just because I have, children by different, fathers, that, I'm not a good parent. I mean, that's getting personal. But then again, I come back and I say, well, can we blame some of the fathers? Where are some of these fathers? But then again, you look at some of these, children who come from these, rich homes, where they have everything, and they're shitty kids. They're entitled, they're shitty, they do things that they shouldn't. They're more than likely to walk if they get arrested, as opposed to someone who doesn't have that much money. So or their parents are off, flying around the world, or running a big business or whatever, and they don't have to have time for their kids. So, raised by nannies, so what's the difference between being raised by a nanny, or the older sibling in the family has to raise you? You has to raise the youngest one. Either way, you're not being raised by your parent, so you know you know that's when I think things, get personal, where, people's emotions can come out and get a little frayed, you know, what do you do? I mean, is it right? No, it isn't. So, anybody?
I don't think, child raising, it cuts across all kinds of socioeconomic lines. And I grew up with mostly middle class families and middle class kids, but there were a handful of well to do families in our neighborhood and in our parish, and almost universally they were some of the worst behaved kids, always acting out in class, always going to the principal's office. Their parents were, like you say, jetting around. Um, and so, I saw firsthand that race or class or money doesn't necessarily result in a stable household. It's a value system, and I think kids need to grow up in a stable environment with loving parents, whether there's one or whether there's two. And the rest of it, I mean, we didn't have any money growing up. My father made, he was a blue collar worker. He didn't have any money. We had 5 kids, and we had a perfectly decent upbringing, because my parents were invested in raising us. So, we sometimes we criticize what we don't understand. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to raise a child. There's no blueprint that says here's the way that works every single time. But I think, to go back, I don't want to dwell too much on statistics, but we tend to focus on probability and statistics. And even though, yes, there are rich families that do a poor job of raising their kids, statistically speaking, the lower economic groups with maybe only one parent in the household, or a mother with multiple fathers or husbands, I mean, or fathers of her child, I mean, statistically and from a probability standpoint, it would say that those are more likely to result in poor outcomes. And I think that's why people tend to stereotype, the the welfare person, or the African American family. It's kind of low hanging fruit, but they can stand legitimately, and I'm not saying legitimate in a self righteous way, but they can rightfully stand behind statistics to defend their perhaps bigotry, but to defend their stereotyping, because they can point to the statistics and say, "See, I'm right." And if you want to come down strictly on statistics, it's hard to argue that. But like I said, I've seen families of all kinds of economic um, strata, and do a very poor job of raising their kids. So it is not it's restricted whatsoever to the lower income classes.
Okay. Does anybody want to comment on what Crucible Man said? Anyone? Crazy Lady, would you like to comment? Or Alchemist, you want to comment? Anybody in the chat? All right. Well, I I think, when it comes to statistics, yes, they are out there. Yes, they do exist. But again, I can only go by, or put like this. One of the things that I go by is from how I grew up, my childhood, the people that I were around. Being an African American woman. You know, um, I didn't grow up, with the statistics where everyone wants to, put African Americans in the low income Section 8 homes, whatever. I didn't, you know. So it just kind of rubs me the wrong way when I hear that, because I know that there are a lot of people, black, white, Latino, Asian, people that I know, that grew up in single family households, um, and they are like awesome. I mean, they are doing some damn good things, and their success is like off the charts. So but Crazy Lady says my children was raised poor, but they know how to behave. And then again, doesn't matter. You can be the poorest of the poor and have the nicest, sweetest children ever, well behaved, well mannered, whatever. So yeah, stereotypes, they, or I'm sorry, statistics, they do come into play, but they tend to knock out the people who um, don't fit that stereotype. And I think that those people should be recognized. Welcome, code 2319. So we're not signing off yet. Welcome. You know, um, Crazy Liz says that statistics say my kids should be on drugs and in and out of jail. You know, so but they're not. You know, um, you have people that assume that, just because this person, does live over here in this particular neighborhood or whatever, that they're horrible, or, they've been in jail, or they're not going to school. Meanwhile, you have someone living in Beverly Hills where, they get picked up every weekend, but because of who their parents are, they get off. So, I know this show has, once again, it always changes, whatever. But, again, when we get personal or we criticize, it still comes down to, you never know what's going on in someone else's home. You never know, someone who, you know, uh, your mother or father, may look like a bum, whatever a bum is now. Before, a bum, you called a homeless person a bum or whatever. But these people are really out there. Even if they're digging through trash to, take back plastic bottles, they could be trying to collect those bottles just to feed their family. So you never know what goes on behind the scenes. And welcome, Sarah Dorothy. Stereotyping is the domain of lazy thinkers. So let me ask you this, Crucible Man, because there was a comment made that not to stereotype takes critical thinking, and I disagree with that. What do you think about that? Do you think it takes critical thinking not to stereotype?
Well, critical thinking is kind of a buzz phrase these days, and it means different things to different people. But in its purest form, I think it's just looking at a problem or a situation in a less superficial way and in a more analytical, critical way, where you're not necessarily criticizing, but you're breaking it down from a problem solving standpoint. Um, so, to some extent, what I just typed into the chat box, stereotyping is lazy thinking. It's going on superficial observations. It's not trying to break down maybe the root cause of why this particular situation has persisted. So it is not required, I don't think, but is the opposite of critical thinking lazy thinking? I don't know the answer to that, but in my world, when I hear critical thinking, I think you're taking a different approach to solving a problem than maybe the more traditional, more superficial approaches, and that does take a degree of thinking that maybe involves more reasoning, more logic, things of that nature, as opposed to saying, yeah, I know that group, they have too many kids, they do this, they do that, instead of saying, well, it's more complicated than that. And I think people who want to say it's more complicated that may be afraid of being excuse makers, or creating um, you know a situation where these people are not accountable. But I really do think they're trying to come at it from a different angle, because this lazy, superficial way we've kind of approached it in the past just hasn't worked, and it's been, I think, as it resulted in a lot of unfair treatment for people who have circumstances that society has chosen they already understand. We have all the answers. We don't need to hear an explanation. We don't need to hear the circumstances of that situation. We can read a newspaper, we can watch the news. We don't need to examine this any closer. And I think that's resulted in some bad outcomes for a lot of groups in this country, particularly African Americans.
Okay. All right. Does anyone want to comment on that? Crazy lady, I'm reading some of the comments that that you're saying. Your children both are straight arrows and have things more together than I do. And again, your circumstances in life, or I'm sorry, your circumstances, how you grew up, does not necessarily dictate how you're going to turn out. Now, granted, there are the extremes, but if a person really makes the effort, or they really want to do well, or the parents are really behind them 100%, who's to say that, this kid who, grew up, the poorest of the poor, isn't one day, going to run this $1 billion, corporation. And meanwhile, the person that he went to school with, who bullied him all the time because he was the poorest of the poor, he just ends up just being an asshole, that is forgotten. So again, stereotyping, assuming, even looking at stats, whatever, to me, not always necessarily the right way to go. I don't care what's the, and this is how I am mostly. What statistics say, I usually turn my nose up at them. And I guess, part of it is because a lot of it usually is negative towards people who look like me. Because I know a lot of people who look like me and, who have done damn well. But I try not to stereotype people because I know how it feels. So, having said that, does anyone have anything they want to say? And Frankie, thank you so much, my friend. I mean, you and these pod beings, thank you so much. And thank you for becoming a super fan. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone that has liked the show. Let's see. I am saying, Crazy Lady says, I am saying and assuming, I'm sorry, I am saying that assuming and stereotype is a formula for failure. Crazy Lady, you want to come on and explain that? I am saying that assuming, are you, okay, let me read this again. Are you saying I am assuming that stereotypes is a formula for failure? Is that what you're saying? Because I know in terms of assuming, we don't, assuming things can also get someone into trouble. And let's see, Crazy Lady, you went in and went out. So I think you're having problems with your mic. But Crucible Man, hold on. Shannon wants to say something. Welcome, Shannon.
Hello. Sorry.
That's okay.
Actually, to tell you the truth, I would find that some people really don't even know what a stereotype is. They're ubiquitous. I'll give you an example. In a lot of it covers a lot of racial groups, like assuming that Asians are good at math, or Republicans are automatically rich, or women are bad at math. So, are all Florida residents are elderly. So they can be very, very dangerous because people get it can be very offensive. Is that what we're still talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about some of everything, but no, I mean, you're right. It can get offensive, and you're also right that it can get dangerous. And I think history has proven and has shown how dangerous stereotyping can get. You
It's
know, um, you know, like you said, people who move to Florida, or who live in Florida,
right.
they're older people, um, when I first moved to California, all I heard was if you go to Palm Springs, is mostly older people. Now, when I went there, it was mostly older people, but now Palm Springs has completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. But like you said, stereotyping can get dangerous, and picking up on what Crazy Lady says is, that when we assuming things can also be dangerous,
Mhm.
which we see, every day.
And many stereotypes are rooted in prejudice. Sorry, I can.
Yes. No, you're right. You're right. It is. It is.
Yeah,
So I think we're all guilty of it in some form or fashion.
sure.
But I can honestly say it is something that I, try not to do. And I have lumped, a certain group of people, and I will say, white people, that, at times I do lump them into one particular group, whatever. Um, because history, once again, it's like I look back and I see what history has done and what history is still doing, and I have a hard time sometimes, separating the two. But again, I should not do that, because all white people are not the same. All black people are not the same. All Asian people are not the same. We all don't do the same things. But it is something that all of us need to check.
Yep.
So
I'll tell you one thing. Every Jewish person I've ever met is truly really good with money.
okay,
I,
all right. Oh my goodness.
I had my best friend in Miami was Jewish, and he was so fantastic, and I called him my Jew gone bad because he ate pork, he cussed, he smoked, and but he was just such a wonderful, wonderful person, and I don't know, and he was just so amazing with money.
Okay.
Sometimes I think I'm Jewish.
Are you Jewish?
No, I think I am. Maybe
Are
in
you
another
think?
life.
Okay. All right, Frankie, thank you for so much for your super chat. Yeah, welcome Paul Warner, and welcome I'll just say PBG01. Welcome. Again, you know, I know we got way off topic, whatever, but I still say you never know what's going on in someone else's home. You never, what people are experiencing, what people are going through. Um, we should try not to criticize. We are human. We do criticize. When things get personal, we should try to keep our emotions in check. Or should we? Sometimes I let my emotions out. Should we keep our emotions in check? Do some people need to see our emotions? And that could be whether you're crying or whether you're pissed off or whether, you want to just yell and scream. Do some people need to see how you're feeling? Or do you just, say screw it and move on? So, with that, does anybody else have anything to say? I'll start with Crucible Man. Do you have anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, as far as the emotions are concerned, what happens, and I used to be this way. I've kind of reformed myself over the years, but when I was younger, I would get very animated when I would get excited or when I would get upset in an argument or in an exchange. I would become very animated, and I did not believe I was acting quote unquote emotionally. In other words, negative emotions. I was simply being animated. I was expressing myself in maybe an aggressive way, but I didn't think much of it. But the people on the other side, they would tend to discredit my message. My point would get lost in all the histrionics and the emotion, and I think people stop listening. So I don't think it helps your cause, but emotions can be interpreted very differently. The person exhibiting the emotions, in my case, me, I understood where that may have looked, how that may have been perceived on the other side, but I tended to downplay it because that was my personality, and I knew what my intent was. But what was coming out of my mouth and into the other person's ears was a hostile person, an angry person. And just from a practical standpoint, when you do that, you behave that way, you undercut your message, and whatever credibility you may have had at the beginning or may still have with your argument kind of tends to go out the window because people dismiss you as a hothead or overly emotional, and they don't take the content of what you're saying very seriously. So to answer your question, I think it's in our best interest not to share our emotions with other people because we're judged in a way that may not be what we intended, and our message tends to get stepped on because people start looking at the message, at the method of communication instead of the message.
I agree with some of that. I would say at the end that if you're becoming animated, whatever. I think it is. I think it's okay for you to show your emotions, even if if you're talking or whatever. I think it's okay to show your emotions, but we don't want to be too aggressive with them, but then again, maybe we do. That's why I said, do some people need to see those emotions?
Well, what would be the benefit for them in seeing the emotions? Because I think you give, when you demonstrate emotion, I mean, it can be viewed as very genuine and very down to earth, and you're just simply being yourself. But it gives people another window into another opportunity, I should say, to make some judgments that maybe you don't want, or maybe they're unfair. So it's a very fine line depending on who you're talking to. But people can be very quick to dismiss, based on some superficial things, and it gives them permission to stop listening to your argument. So it just depends on who you're talking to. But emotion is not a bad thing at all. I'm not saying emotion is a bad thing. It just has to be channeled, because in the hands of the wrong person, it can be used against you. And in any kind of an exchange or a discussion or an argument, we all want to win, right? Whatever that means. And if displaying our emotions makes that less likely, again, from a practical standpoint, you have a better chance of winning over the other person if they're listening to you, not focusing on your emotions.
Well, I don't think, for me, it's not winning. It's, can you just listen? Can you just listen as opposed to, criticizing? Can you just listen? I think we all just want to be listened to. So, Shannon, what do you want to say before we wrap it up, my friend?
I just want to do something short and sweet, like a couple of my favorite quotes, very short. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. A life spent making mistakes is not only more honorable, but more useful than a life spent doing nothing. And I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples. Ta-da.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Thank you very, very much. And those quotes and you sharing them are absolutely correct. So,
That was Gandhi and George Bernard Shaw.
Gandhi and I'm sorry, and who was the last one?
George Bernard Shaw.
George Bernard Shaw. All right. So again, as always, you guys, I ask questions and you guys give me answers. So I thank you very, very much. Thank you, for liking the show. Thank you for showing up, for the pod bings and the super chats. And again, Frankie, thank you for becoming a super fan. Thank you very much. So again, I always say speak your truth, but I'm adding go where the wind takes you. I am Solid Blue Sister. This is my turn to talk, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye. Crucible Man, you sent me a pod bean. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I didn't say hello, Crucible Man. Hello. I'm sorry earlier. I was having a Reuben. It was freaking the best Reuben I ever had.
Well, that's okay, because I have been on shows where I have been eating too, and sometimes cooking. So I totally get it. So, yeah.
Hi, Podfather. I gotta talk to you. It's important. Oh, okay. Hold on, crazy lady. Hold on, baby.
And I again hope everyone is having a wonderful day. It has been raining nonstop today here in Southern California, but we of course need the rain. Let's see. I'm going through some of these comments here.
And that's for you too, Solid Blue. If you're on Discord, it's a way to send each other direct messages.
I'm sorry. If I'm on what?
It's called Discord. A lot of the podcasters are on Discord, and that's how we communicate with each other.
This is what you're saying, Discord. Thank you, Juju. This is what you're saying, Discord?
Yes. Yes.
Is that something that you download on your phone or what?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will.
And that's my number. You just send me a thing, and then that way we can chat it anytime you want.
Okay.
It's better than email. It's great. You can put video in there and all kinds of stuff.
0986. Okay, let me write that down.
Yeah, crazy lady.
And I have to make sure I put that hashtag in there, right?
Yes.
All right, I will download that later today, and take a look at it. All right.
All right.
But that's something that if I send you a message, it just goes to you. It's not something like Twitter or anything where everyone.
Well, no, you can do a group chat or you can send a direct message. It's got a lot of options. That's why I like it a lot. And like you can put full video and stuff in there, and it's not like a regular. You'll like it. It's cute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can be private too. Sure.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, thank you again for coming, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye. Hey, Podfather, get a hold of me.